Good afternoon, folks. It is June 8th at 12 o'clock. We just finished up our show last night. And this year, for the next show, we're going to document a lot of what I go through and what Rachel goes through when she creates these shows. So that being said, you can tell, obviously, I just have been waking up, and she already woke me up saying, hey, I have an idea for the next show. Speaking of shows, that was just the air show going on in our neighborhood. They're flying over our house, so it might be a little loud, but this is how it happens. So my wife will come up to me with these ideas and just be like, hey, I got an idea for the next show. So here we go. We're going to document the process and post it on YouTube, and you can come along on our journey as she creates these shows, and you can see all the fun-filled stuff that we go through, all the craziness that happens during the process of a show. Everything from auditions to casting to writing to lighting to backstage, you'll get to watch it all. So come along with us. Right now, we're going to hear the idea from Rachel herself on the show. So here we go.
All right, so in the shower, I was thinking this morning about what we should do for the next show, and what I kept thinking was fantasy. I love being in this fantasy world with the kids. And so we've done and covered so many different fantasy aspects. So how do we make it different than what we've already done? And so this idea of going into a fantasy world came to me. That was the beginning of the idea. Sorry, my phone's blowing up too. So when we go into a fantasy world, what does that mean? And I kept thinking of little girls, because I have mostly girl dancers, and their fantasy worlds, which include a lot of fairies and unicorns and things like that, but we could go so deep into a fantasy world. So the idea is maybe having two sisters get into a fight, and the younger of the two sisters goes into her room and finds a portal, a door, and out of curiosity she goes through that door. When she comes out, it's a mirror world on the other side, but in a fantasy. So maybe it's her bedroom, but it's a fairy bedroom, something along those lines. And because her and her sister are fighting, her sister doesn't enter that world with her, but somehow ends up in that world and is captured by a darkness, which could be anything at this point. It could be a dragon, it could be an ogre, it could be anything from that fantasy world that captures her sister. And so this little girl has to save her big sister in this fantasy world, so that when she returns to the normal world, she feels guilty about their fight and they make up. I don't know, what do you think?
I don't mess with the process. I just go along with the flow. I've learned over the last couple years, you don't mess with Rachel's process. And it'll be what it'll be.
But I mean, we could go so deep. We could have so many different main characters for something like this, because we could go as deep as we want into a fantasy world. So we could have like a water goddess, or, you know, like ogres and dragons and knights and princesses, and because it is a fantasy world of a child, so that has no limits on it. I don't know.
Okay. So do you have characters in mind already? How does that work? Does that come later with time?
It does. You know, obviously that right now there would be the two sisters, and I don't know what their ages would be. There would just have to be an older one and a younger one. But this, I'm thinking the one that would go through the portal would have to be young enough to still believe in the fantasy.
Okay. All right, and then tell us a little bit about like your music selection process. How does that happen when you
Oh gosh. So I have to come up with the theme first. like if we do this fantasy world, which I have no idea what I would even title that. And then we would get into, okay, there's going to be an argument between the sisters, so what would be a good song that would tell that story? And so then I would get on YouTube and put in something like songs about arguing, and I would go through and listen and find one that would be appropriate without a lot of swearing, and because it is a kid's show, so we have to make sure that it's appropriate for young children. So that would be the process. I usually come up with 5 or 6 different songs that could work, and then I choose the one that I think best fits what that moment of the show is trying to tell.
Okay. This might seem like an off-the-wall question, but any advice for other studios when they are coming up with themes for their show that you can give them?
Shows are... It seems like dance studios these days just do dance after dance after dance. Like, we're going to have a theme. Hi. Thank you. Like, we're going to have a theme for a show, but we're just going to do a travel through time, and then it's just one song after another, after another, after another, and the audience tends to get bored. So having more of a plot with that engages the audience and keeps them focused on what's going on, so that they don't get bored and they're not just sitting in the audience waiting for their child to dance. I don't know if that makes sense.
I feel it makes sense, but we'll see what people say.
Yeah.
Comment down below. Let us know what you think. In regards, if you do have a dance studio and you're watching this, let us know what you think.
My only other thing that I would say would be to be original. Be original with your ideas. Even if you're taking an idea that's been used 100 times, do something different with it that nobody's done before. That would be my advice.
Cool.
Thanks.
Stay tuned.